To Thursday Nighter, round one for the month of June. We are pleased that you could join us. We have some club announcements to get started with. There is currently a big tournament happening in Vegas. It's a national tournament, attracts a lot of strong players. We have many players from Minnesota who are attending, including the pros from the last weekend's match. Sammy's at 2 out of 2, and New Bears at 1.5 out of 2. So we'll see if they get paired in that tournament as well. Um, and we will update next week on the more updated standings and the final results from that tournament as they're still in the early goings. This weekend, as far as Minnesota chess goes, we have the Blitz Championship, once a year thing. 76 players have registered so far, so I think that's a pretty good turnout so far. I'm guessing we'll get over 80 players, considering we still have just a couple days before it starts. But that'll just be a Saturday long event at the Plymouth Community Center. It attracts many strong players. We have a player, Valentin. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's a player who he plays rarely. He's from Ukraine, according to Eddie. He is very strong. I think he's over 2350, I believe is his posted rating. But he doesn't play too much. But he'll be playing in this tournament, so fun to see him there. Andrew Titus, the reigning champion, will be there. Jackson Wall, who's won it before. Jordan Tim, Leonard Johnson, and David Schaubert. I'm also playing, so I'll do my best to deal with these heavy hitters. As far as the broadcast schedule goes, we're trying to get a more variety of commentators. So next week, we will have Joseph Wan, who commentated on the Masters match, and National Master OK. The third week, we will have National Master Andrew Titus, who I believe will make his premiere stream on the channel, his first stream, and then myself. The fourth week, we will have International Master DeBear and Chris. Our player profile for this week is Jeremy Kyler. He's an every month player in the Thursday Nighter. He's a loyal club member. He's an improving player with a peak rating of 1762, achieved very recently. So I do know he's definitely getting a couple hundred points, I think, as of the last year or two. So definitely getting a lot stronger. He became active with COVID and the Queen's Gambit boom, and as I said, is improving quickly. He, the winner of the open section, actually, during the January Thursday Nighter, with a crushing 4.5 out of 5. His best wins include David Wenzel, John Baker, and Kevin Landman. And his best draws include 2 draws against one Nathan Hoover, and everyone knows Nate. So yeah, pretty impressive
Pretty
stuff.
good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get to his game. Today he's playing Mitch Ross, and they start off with a symmetrical English. Which this is an interesting variation. And Bishop D6. I'm not familiar with the opening here, so I don't know whether Bishop D6 is known or not. It does have a weird feel to it, but let me take a look and see what the database says. Well, if it's good enough for Robert Hess, then I guess it's not too bad. Although the game didn't end well for him. Apparently, Grandmaster Hess played it against Grandmaster Romain. So Mighty 5 is the first new move, according to the master database, and which is also kind of funny how these things work. So 95 is the first time it's been played according to master database. However, if we look at the entire Lichess database, this position is not unknown. In fact, it's there've been, it looks like, 85 games in this position. Anyway, the important thing is that it creates an interesting game, and at this time, it seems like Jeremy's built up a pretty decent position. Um, and on top of that is threatening to fork the minor pieces, as well as take the bishop on d6, which is currently on priest.
Hmm. Yeah, this is an opening I'm not familiar with myself either, but these players must be well prepared in it, especially looking at their time usage.
Yes, either that or the moves are so intuitive that they don't have to spend much time thinking about what to play. I doubt that because the positions seemed a bit complex a few moves earlier. And now f4. So black decided to get a foothold in the center with e5, and white immediately tackles it with the f4 pawn.
Yeah, it seems like the opening has gone well for white. I mean,
Yes.
not a crushing, but you have the bishop pair. It's a pretty open position, so um, that's a good thing. I mean, when you say you have the bishop pair, you need to clarify if it's even good, because sometimes you can have the bishop
Yes.
pair and it's bad. So I do want to clarify that this is a position where, at least to my limited understanding, you want the bishop pair. I think
Yes.
most players would prefer it in this position. And I mean, it looks like it might even open up further. So definitely, Jeremy's in the driving seat so far.
Yeah. And it just so happens that makes in trying to keep that foothold in the center also now has a backward pawn on the d file, which might require some babysitting depending on how the rest of the game goes. So already Jeremy's putting pressure on said pawn. Oh, nice. Um, so this is an interesting sequence here. So he puts pressure on the d6 pawn, and Mitch responds by exchanging off the pawn at f4, probably hoping for white to take back pawn takes pawn. But it turns out that white has this nice in-between move. Um, Attacking the knight and also attacking the d6 pawn, which currently is pinned against this rook. So already Mitch seems to be in dire straits. The position is opening up, and yes, the bishops are the ones to benefit from that.
I think he had to go rook d8 if we go back.
Yes. Yeah, I think he has to give up the exchange. Well,
I
in
was
this
actually saying, yeah,
position,
even a move further back. I
yeah,
think he can save
here,
material. Yeah.
yeah, here, rook d8, I think, does the trick, and maybe white plays here, um, and just, gradually puts pressure on the position. The attempt to get active. So there are a couple of problems with e takes f4. It doesn't take into account the looming attack on d6, but also it's opening up the position, which, as you mentioned, should be better for the person with a bishop pair. So even if the tactic didn't exist, it seems as if just strategically it might be suspect to play this way. And now
Everything's hanging.
black's in a world of hurt. It's just painful. So he's currently a full rook up and hoping to get even richer. So yeah, it is exactly one rook up. So the rest, as the old books would say, is a matter of technique. And it seems like Jeremy's technique is pretty nice. He's activating his pieces while winning extra material, and now he's going to double on the the seventh rank, or not. He's going to exchange off rooks, and the rook actually can't escape his fate. So Mitch gave up at this point. Well, I guess he didn't give up immediately. He played for a few more moves and now gave up. So yeah, looking at the most obvious um, mistake was not taking time to adequately defend the d6 pawn, and I'm going to guess that it was probably not realizing the strength of this pin. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two. I mean, if you play, I guess what I'd ask first is, can we see how much? Because I can look here too. I'm just curious to know how much time he spent on that move. It was 4 minutes. So, I mean, he didn't play it super quickly, but I mean, Rook D8 is a move you don't need to spend too much time on. But my guess is he missed the pin
Mm-hmm.
on the F8 rook, kind of like you mentioned, and he also maybe missed that after e takes f4. There's no longer the tension between those pawns, and white can just open up and threaten the rook. So yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
just probably multiple blind spots, and it takes multiple blind spots to lose a rook. So
Yes.
probably what happened.
Yes. Quite right. So okay, well, that was a good game by Jeremy. And uh, I did say I'd probably look at this opening a bit. Again, I don't know this position really. I suppose technically they could have been moving towards uh, a Botvinnik type setup. Although I suppose with the Botvinnik, the knight is usually going to e2, and maybe the d pawn is going to be staying on d3. So yeah, this 95, which also um, I suppose requires some questioning. Even though it's not an open type of position yet, Black probably shouldn't be spending a second move on the knight when there are other developmental chores to take care of.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, yeah.
I don't know what appeals to you, but what it kind of appeals to me is if we can, like I said, I'm unfamiliar with this opening, but yeah, like castles first, kind of like the computers mentions, and then maybe we can bring our bishop back and then try to play d5. That's what
Yes.
that's what strikes me as intuitive, and it looks like
Mm-hmm.
the only way white can really stop that, because they can't play e5. They just drop a pawn. They have to maybe
Yeah.
play like queen b3 if they want to stop us from playing d5.
Mm-hmm.
But then we play knight a5 maybe, and we have a weird little dance. So definitely that seems maybe a slightly better plan. But like I said, I'm unfamiliar with this opening, so maybe knight e5 is some theory.
Yeah, as I said, when I looked at the master database, 95 is a new move, or a
Oh, okay.
TN,
Yeah.
as we'd say it in the master database. However, this position does seem to appear 80 plus times within Lichess's online database. They're not the master database, but I guess games played on the server. So, all right. Well, let's see. We have a couple other games that have finished. Let's take a look at Ryan Sharoma versus Ethan Hunt. Ryan's also an improving young player, but he's been on the scene for a while, so he doesn't get the wonderkind treatment for the broadcast. So we've got a Rosalibo So I guess I've never thought of. I guess I wouldn't have reason to think of what Ethan plays against e4 to say don't play e4 against him. Um, but I am interested to see he plays Sicilian. And maybe you know a bit more about this position than I do. Uh, in this position, so is this a normal thing? This sort of dance they're having?
I don't, to be honest. Most Sicilians I play aren't don't get into this exact Wasalimo position, so I'm
Oh, okay,
probably about as clueless as you are.
okay. Because Queen D2 looks like an interesting approach, and I'm trying to see how that's fitting with the rest of the position. Um, maybe the idea is to keep the B2 pawn defended in case of a later queen B6 or something. Yeah, that's probably the idea. All right. But now white, after this, white's position seems a bit troubled because with bishop g4, there's now a good amount of pressure against the d4 square, which brings a question of maybe should white have played bishop e2 instead of bishop f1?
Or should they have just taken the knight on c6? We move to defend the
Well,
b.
yes. Yes.
It's not a move I want to play, but it's a more active move.
Yes. That's another important point. That bishop c6 here might make sense just to reduce the pressure against the center. Yeah, after this, white's position already seems kind of critical. I mean, when you're having to play rook d1 to defend the d pawn, allowing your king side king's pawn structure to get damaged like this just seems it's probably not what white had wanted.
I guess what we're not talking about is why did he play queen takes d2 on move 9?
Well, that's what I was asking earlier. That because I was
Yeah,
trying to figure out why. Because I thought, okay, maybe queen d2 was to help protect the b2 square in case of a queen b6, and then queen b6 happens. I said, okay, maybe that's why he played it, but it still seems awkward. I mean, the bishop on c1 is not enjoying this position.
I think you're kind of getting the lesser of two evils here. So maybe we play bishop d2, and then if queen b6, we trade.
Yeah,
Um, and then
and maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe part of the problem was that white didn't want to acquiesce to the idea of having to give up his bishop for knight.
yeah,
Though even in this position, if you played back and queen here happened, I suppose this is legal. Maybe bishop g4 happens though. But then we can, if you play bishop g4, now with the open file, we can now take the b2 pawn, the b7 pawn. And it's a mess. But it'll be a mess where white will have the bishop pair and not have a um, broken king side because he can capture
yeah,
back on f3 with his. Well, maybe this is not that clear, actually.
yeah. They can probably take on
On
f3.
a2. Oh, f3 now. Yeah, that's true. Although in this situation, Maybe. Oh,
You-
he even has e6 here. Not
mhm.
sure that's good. Definitely not sure that if that's good. Um,
Black's a pawn here though, so I don't. Hmm,
yeah, this is not clear to me.
yeah.
So oops. So here, queen b6. So yeah, I think just bishop takes c6 might be necessary. And then, although it still seems rather, it I suppose black, if black plays here, maybe white develops the wooden shield with that, and then says, okay, I have a bad bishop that's protecting good pawns, and the pawn structure is going to squeeze you. If you put your pawns on light squares, then you have an equally bad light square bishop. If you exchange off, then you expose this guy as a weakness. Maybe that could be part of the calculus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looks good.
But yeah, queen d2 just left a very strange impression. And then um, add that to bishop f1. And I think maybe Ryan probably underestimated the pressure against his center, or how quickly Ethan was going to be able to put pressure on the center, especially missing cd4, cd4, bishop g4, which this sort of position is a French player's delight from the black standpoint.
I was checking the Masters database, and Queen D2 only appears in 2 Master games, while Bishop D2 appears in a whole host of games. So it is definitely an offbeat move.
Yes, yes. And as the game further game progress showed, offbeat for a reason, because this is just not good. That's mean and unusual punishment. Yikes. Uh,
Yeah.
Another one of those positions where um, white, black has just enough compensation for his material advantage. Um, this is harsh. So bishop e3, queen f6, I'm guessing. Yeah, bishop h3, bishop e5. So the exchange up plus um, 3 pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is not going to last long. And he's threatening mate. So this is also a good thing to point out. So black develops a nice material advantage, but doesn't just sit on it and actually plays actively to give. That's cute.
Mm-hmm.
Rook f3 is. Of course, if bishop takes, then queen takes mate. So the rook is untouchable. And at this point, he could potentially capture the rook. Not that it makes his life that much better, but um, black decides to give up the rook in a good way. If bishop takes, then queen takes, king check. And I think, yeah, just check.
Yeah.
and there. So he runs away. She allows bishop there. Yikes. Wow. Ethan played very powerful chess to
Hmm.
clean things up at the end there. All right. So let's take a look at Nathan, last month's winner, versus Robert Donahue. Queen's Gambit accepted. Oh, Robert, is this a thing?
I don't. I don't think so. But
I don't think I've ever seen this in a serious game. So, okay, well, we'll see how it goes. Um,
I mean, bishop c6, bishop f4. I mean, bishops are coming in.
I mean, you almost, as white, you almost don't want to uh, be too much in a hurry to take the extra material. Uh, what? Okay, so this is simply harsh. So Nate's willing to give up a pawn if that means that Black's coordination gets even worse. Because after the bishop f3, uh, queen f3, bishop h2, king h1,
I don't know if that actually
white.
be giving up a pawn because then you're threatening queen takes a8 and also threatening to trap the bishop.
Yes, yes, that's what I say. That it's the pawn win is well, I did say it, but I was going to say that it's a Pyrrhic victory. So okay,
Hmm. You got two pawns, and black's king isn't very happy.
no. In fact, it might be described as very sad, especially since it's threatened with mate on the next move. Uh, Nathan is Nathan didn't want to leave any questions as to what was going to happen in this game. Wow. Yeah, it seems like Robert just self-destructed, just giving up two knight pawns while not developing. I mean, usually if you're going to Gambit material at the opening, you're hoping to get some tempi or some other justification for it, but that didn't happen in this game. Okay, let's move along and take a look at Vincent Rancour versus Connor Weatherly. Vincent Rancour, I believe, has been national master, but it doesn't play that often. My recollection, I think I've played him before, maybe once or twice, and I believe it was a King's Indian attack he played. So we'll see what he plays here. Okay, we're going into the Spanish. Connor responds with the Schliemann. Um, in that transaction, okay, I'd be lying if I said I understood what was going on here from White's standpoint. Okay, that was making some sense. So he, um, he's gotten a bit of a passive position. White has, and he maybe has a slightly better pawn structure, but Black also has a bishop pair, and so similar dynamics to the concerns in the as often happens in the exchange variation of the Spanish opening. Um, and here, White's position is still passive, and Black has managed to improve his position even further, get them more active. I'm not. I am not. In a hurry to have White's position here. It
No.
just seems. It just seems very unappetizing. Well,
Mm, mm. I don't
yeah,
I don't like Rook F1. I mean, I thought maybe he played 91 to play F3.
yeah, that's what I
Maybe
thought too.
F3 isn't good, but why are you playing 91 if you're gonna play Rook F1? I don't know.
Actually, I was uh, a fan of. I mean, if he was going to play 91, I thought it only made poetic sense to play here, here, and here, right? And have the knights sitting on the royal thrones, right? Um, B1 and D1. Okay, it's just whether it's functional or not isn't the point. It's just that it's an interesting picture of the knights being usurpers. Um, but okay, Rook F1. It's pretty passive, maybe necessary, but it just seems like with every move, Black's pieces are getting a bit better, and White's pieces are okay. The best thing about that move seems to be that he's creating some space for his king, but um,
Yeah, I don't understand that move.
yeah, I am
And
not.
is he trying to bring the bishop back?
Oh,
I don't know why you want
maybe.
the bishop back.
I think Vincent has just completely bought into playing passively here. This might be his idea. So say he plays something, I don't know, we'll just toss in this move, right? Maybe he's concerned that this is happening.
Oh, good point.
So there is some logic to it. So now bishop takes d2 won't be check, but it still looks like a sad position. Oh, and he still plays bishop d2. Wow. Okay.
I mean, I
Now
guess
I am.
either way, you still get two pieces for the rook, so maybe, yeah.
No, in the other line
The other one,
is
maybe it's just bad, but this is
yeah, but the other line is
less
just a
bad.
piece, I think, right? Because in the other line there's this, and then here, and then here,
Yeah.
check, and then here, and it's simply a piece. So this is actually an upgrade. It's two pieces for the rook,
Hmm.
but still doesn't inspire much in the way of confidence. Oh, whoa, whoa. Was that forced? Maybe Vincent. Oh, okay. He might be looking to play rook e2, which gives up another pawn. Yeah, this is kind of sad for white now. And it's interesting watching Connor use his bishops to deny the rook any play while also keeping an eye on potential targets. He's just munched one of them, and now the H and F pawns are probably next on the menu. So now the the question is, how do you protect both of the pawns? And it seems there is no good answer. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Connor back to his winning ways. Again, White played rather passively and found himself in a lot of trouble fairly early. The the game lasted 46 moves, but essentially was decided maybe back on move what would that have been? 20?
Yeah, even earlier, Connor just had a nice position. It's not
Yes.
super obvious from my brief what am I saying? From my brief look over of it. It's not obvious where Vincent went wrong, but it's just Connor slowly got more space, and like you said, Vincent was too passive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he just got into this hedgehog is white mentality, maybe, or something. But um, the yeah, black got a bishop pair, better, more active pieces in general, and white was constantly retreating. It seemed like.
You know, maybe at that move we were just at move 10. Maybe he should have fianchetted out his dark squared bishop
So
instead
here,
of instead of
oh yes,
yeah,
like
maybe just
b3,
going
b3
for
bishop b2.
b3. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a much better square. I mean, what ended up happening in the game was he played bishop d2. He still got it to c3, but this would be another alternative.
Yes, yeah, I think that would have made some sense.
Oh, I guess he didn't. Oh yeah, he didn't trade. He got the knight came to g4, and now your dark square bishop's pretty sad. So
Yes, and maybe there's an argument if you're going to play, um, if you're going to get a passive position, maybe I don't know. This is so here and then knight back. So let's see if we can find a better move.
yeah, it's tough already.
Yeah.
You can't you want to trade pieces. You can't trade pieces. You want to
Mm-hmm.
stop knight g4. You can't really stop knight g4. Um, yeah.
It's not a pleasant position. Uh, well, okay. Well, that was a good win by Connor. Let's take a look at Miles versus Torphy. Okay. Oh, okay. One of many, many uh, approaches against the Dutch is this early G5 with knight f3. Um, I often will try bishop g5 with knight c3. They get to different positions. This has more of a Torre attack flavor to it. This one, and now we transpose to a position that uh, usually would come from the Staunton Gambit in the Dutch, which something like this, and here, and there. F takes, knight takes, knight takes, bishop, and then in this version of the Steinitz, this would be played in the knight e4, bishop e7, bishop takes, and now we've gotten to our game position. Um,
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with this opening. Would you explain why they don't play d5 to save the pawn?
um, in this position,
Yeah.
so after
Well,
d5,
I
yep.
get there's queen h4 here, but maybe a bit later on.
So
Queen
after knight
h5, excuse me.
f6,
After knight f6, bishop g5. I guess here it doesn't work either, right?
yes, because if you do d5, we can still do bishop takes, e takes, queen h5.
Okay.
So white takes advantage of the f pawn
Hmm.
having wandered away from f7 um, as a tool to get the pawn back.
Hmm.
The most popular move in this position, by the way, is knight c6, and white will often play d5 here. Make sure that guy's not comfortable. Knight in, and then queen e2 is known. Queen d4 is also known. I would ask going a bit further afield. Um, but yeah, so we get here, and so we're in a Staunton Gambit where Black has given back the pawn to get his pieces developed, and it's all fairly standard stuff. And now it's not so standard. I mean, it's a standard idea from White, but Torfi's already suffering a little bit. I think White's attack is going to come pretty quick here. And we're already there. Now, if this is legal, bishop g8, it's a good question. How does Black avoid checkmate? So we found one way he can do it. But then ends up losing his queen. So a harsh beginning. Now let's take stock though. So pawns are even. So it's queen for two minor pieces, which is not a trivial game to win. White has to still display some energy and accuracy. And already Miles is doing some interesting stuff. So rook rook e8's a nice way to exchange off a pair of rooks and hope that white's remaining pieces can bully black's. He has to be careful that he doesn't fall into some mishap on the b1 to h7 diagonal. Okay, that's kind of cute. So if the bishop takes on d4, then black takes e7. Sorry, white takes e7, and it's getting more precarious as pieces come off the board.
Yeah, he's just finding good ways to trade off all the material.
Yes, almost in an almost ruthless fashion to get pieces off the board. Oh, so if pawn takes, then queen e4 seems to do the trick. So he plays here instead, and I wonder if bishop, if queen e6 is a bit more accurate. I mean, maybe it doesn't really matter, but yeah, where is the bishop going? And
Yeah,
the
I think
bishop,
that's much better. Yeah.
yeah, if the bishop leaves e8, then queen f7 is checkmate in 2. So this would probably finish quicker,
Or is
but
it checkmate into either way,
oh
basically?
yeah, there's that too. There's that too. Here I am trying to question the judgment of Miles, who is definitely capable of master strength chess more often than not. So yeah, this is that was a demolition. Unfortunately for Torfi, his beloved Dutch didn't fare well. Let's see if we can find
Yeah.
where Torfi could have improved. So I think b6 is slow in this specific position. I think b6 might be too slow. Uh, maybe he needs to start preparing for e5. Um,
Yeah, speaking of e5, maybe you just blast now instead of b6. Maybe you play e5 now.
so e5 right now, um, has a feel to it. So if d5, 97, I don't know, maybe d6.
Wait, maybe if
And
e5, they can trade takes, knight takes, bishop takes, and then they play queen h5,
mhm.
threatening your bishop. If you move it back, they'll just take it on f6 and then take h7. So maybe e5 is a bit too slow, but maybe you can play d5 first, kick away the knight, and then play e5.
Yeah, typically what I've faced most commonly, at least online, is d5. This is probably the most likely move for me to see here, and then usually continues here, and and it's kind of important to play queen e2 here. Bishop b5 can be played with a similar idea. Basically, we're trying to dominate the e5 square. A lazy move like 0-0 might not be enough. White can probably have to figure out how to deal with this, or maybe even just play bishop d7 first, since there's no good way for white to eventually prevent e5 without losing viable tempi. So often here, queen e2 makes some sense, and with bishop d7, then here, and the idea is castling can wait. For one, maybe we want to castle queenside, but for two, it's most important to keep this bind on e5 from being let out. So, but d5, I think, is probably better. So then here,
Yeah.
yeah, it seems better. b6 might just be a bit slow. So
Now you
already,
can't play it. Yeah.
yeah. And suddenly White's position is just dominating. And then bishop e7 didn't make things better because Black still has to worry about defending his kingside pawns. And yeah, after this, it's just, I think it's already done here.
Yeah.
That said, Miles showed some nice skill and tactical vision, threatening checkmate on h7, forcing rook here, but then not able to defend against the royal fork on f7. So yeah, and then we saw the rest of this. So yeah, very convincing win for Miles. And Torfi probably has to take his Dutch back into the mechanics shop to figure out a better move order here. So let's see. We have not looked at Noah Stewart versus Drew Johnson. Grand Prix attack. E5 might be troublesome for White. Because f6 immediately tackling the pawn. Interesting. Very interesting.
Very. I prefer black, but we'll see.
Yeah, I do too. I think Black seems to have more going for him, but okay, his king is placed rather unfortunately for the moment. Okay, that might be problematic. Wait a second, does that give up? Yeah, I was gonna ask, does that give up material right there? Because White needs to, oh, sorry, Black needs to figure out, well, I guess he could play knight f7. Yeah. Okay, so White has restored material equality.
He's actually still down the pawn because he had to give up the pawn on well, he didn't have to, but he played d4, giving up another pawn.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Well, this is not looking nice. So what did Drew plan? Okay, so there. Whoa, Nelly. What is this?
I'm wondering if he just could have played king e8 instead of blocking.
Yeah, being here.
Yeah, right here. Just play king e8.
Yeah, it seems like that might have been doable.
He's not weak material, but he's gonna trade queens. He'll make his
Yeah.
king safer, and he's up a pawn, so might as well.
Yes. Yeah, that seems like. Well,
And
let's put the moves on the board, right?
White's obliged to trade some material, or he will lose it.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is.
I think rook
And
f6
yeah,
is
he
gonna
has to
lead
do
to some
something now
trouble.
because the bishop on g5 is still hanging, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, and then after that, black. So this game was topsy turvy. I have to admit. Knight c6, bishop g5, and yes, so rook king e8 seems to be a better way. Instead, bishop f6 was played. And now, I don't know if you maybe we can take a few moments to try and understand what White's idea is after this.
Or just peaked, so I'll let you figure that out.
Look here.
I scanned through the game and
Oh, oh, nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So that's a nice checkmate that Noah had um, prepared. All right.
So I think if rook takes though, I think he's still in the game. Or if rook takes,
So if
if
rook
rook,
takes, then bishop takes check, and king takes.
but I think black's okay here.
Yeah, black seems to be quite okay here, actually.
So the line I was more
Yes.
looking at was if we keep the tension and we bring our queen back, if we
So
play queen
queen
f3,
f3.
and then if
Yeah,
we
yeah.
play, but I mean this is holding for black too, because queen f8, rook f1, knight e8, and I think he's just hanging on.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think Drew was winning the whole game, but he fell for Noah's nice queen queen trap.
Yeah. That's so Noah. I mean, Noah deserved to win for finding that trick,
Yes.
but it was definitely against the run of play, as we'd see in football, soccer. Uh, Black was definitely ahead, at least had better chances until this accident happened. I'm calling it an accident is with air quotes. All right, let's see. We have Norman Myron versus Thomas Babcock. Let's look at that. Thomas Babcock, NM, Norman Myron, one of the pillars of Thursday Night Chess. And oh, does Norman usually allow his C pawn to cross the third rank? No, I think he usually because he's usually playing Stonewall type positions, so that's why I was just joking about that. And I mean, I'm the one to talk. My pawn often doesn't make it past the third rank as white either, my C pawn. But So we've actually reached uh, a known version of the semi-Slav, which I think is officially the Stoltz variation. Stoltz, I believe, was a Swedish master of yesteryear. Although, which actually might make sense since um, one of the people commonly seen on the black side of this position is the Swedish super GM Ulf Andersson, who was one of the top 10 players like in the 70s into the 80s, and then later went really big into correspondence chess and got to be really highly rated there.
Hmm.
Just a little bit of trivia there. So both players are marshaling their pieces, and e4 just has a bad smell about it right there. I do not like that move.
Yeah, and
So,
my
yeah.
instincts were a bit uh yeah, hesitant to it as well.
I mean, for one, is bishop g5? Oh, yeah. Well, I guess he plays bishop g5. Bishop g5 is probably winning material right off the bat. Because there's a double attack. And there's no way to deal with both attacks at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So Norman has to do the desperado. So at least he gets two pawns for his piece. But one of those pawns is the isolated queen pawn, which might not be long for this world. And Thomas exchanges pieces judiciously, and probably has intentions like bishop takes f3 or maybe knight e6, actually, putting more pressure on the d pawn. And this is just capitulation. You never want to exchange off pieces without a good reason when you're material down like this. And so and then Babcock does a double attack, attacking e1 as well as a2. And Norman defends, but now queen d2, which is attacking the d pawn. So queen a1 happens, and yeah, this is tough. That pawn on d4 is not going to be on the board for long. This is a nice crosspin tactic.
Mm-hmm.
So the bishop on c3 is pinned against the queen on a1, so that this would be responded to by this, and it's just getting clearer and clearer that white is going to be losing this one. But okay, bishop d4, c, and now knight d4 is played. So the pawn deficit is only one, and the activity deficit is a zillion, or is it a bajillion?
They're both big.
They're both big, yes. And now, this is actually a very nice spoof by Thomas. The knight has nowhere safe to go. So it's just See, it's. I think it's instructive to see how um, white tries to defend and how black gets the job done. And this is another really uh, nice move, just exchanging off the queens. These sort of positions, yeah, you can make things more complicated, more fancy, but why?
Yeah.
Take a simple route, exchange off queens, and let your material advantage um, take over. Now, I don't. I I'm guessing this is an error in transmission. This does not seem. It doesn't seem normal to go in to win a pawn and then withdraw. So I don't know whether they were putting pieces back on the DGT board and cause a small error. But all right, so then we still have board one. Actually,
Hmm.
it's interesting. Board one is the last game to finish. It's still ongoing. Um, Eddie Wasserman versus Jordan Tim. And no, the clock times are not a misprint. Jordan Tim is one of those speed demons who is always playing fast. And Eddie Wasserman, on the other hand, uh, takes his time and then plays pretty well under time pressure. Let's see how we got to this position. Ah, okay. So a different approach against the Jababa Jababa London. Excuse me.
Yeah, it looks playable for black.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it could. Black could find himself in a bit of in a spot of trouble, just because the way the white already has a queenside pawn, an effective queenside pawn majority,
Hmm.
ready to run down the board. Okay, there's still the question of getting your pieces developed, but oh, okay, Jordan. So Jordan exchanges off a knight, and in the process helps to defend his bishop on f4. Meanwhile, was threatening knight e6, which is part of the reason why Eddie captured. Um,
Yeah, I think bishop c6 seems like a nice move from Eddie because he didn't want c6 and his bishop to be locked out of the game
yes,
for who knows how long.
yes. If you want to um, reveal the identity of a very sad bishop, let's say we play here. Um, that is the definition of a really sad bishop.
Very sad.
So, so playing bishop c6, yes, does have a good point to it. I was wondering if b5 might make sense, but um, having played a similar maneuver myself, Eddie's plan for development might include this because he wants to bring the bishop out through here, or even just park it here.
Hmm.
And then b5, are we really ready to break through on the queen side with the king still stuck in the center and the rook's not connected? Probably not. So that bishop d3 seemed to make some sense.
Hmm.
Hmm. Bishop g6. Okay.
It's interesting. I I can understand why Eddie played that move,
Hmm.
because white does have more space, so you kind of
Hmm.
want to exchange pieces, but it's also a bit unappealing because now Eddie has the double G pawns. White can always
Yeah.
lift a rook to the third rank and then maybe try to do something on the H file potentially. So it's a bit scary, but I can also understand why Eddie played that just because he was feeling a little bit of pressure.
I think that makes yeah, that makes sense. And actually, Eddie might be happy having an extra G pawn that he can launch at White's kingside position
Hmm.
at some moment. So C6. Obviously, the pawn, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but most likely, White won't be able to hold on to the C6 pawn after this, I guess. Yeah, because you can just play rook c8 or even queen here, and then you just grab the pawn back, leaving white with a passed but isolated c pawn. This one keeps things together a bit more. Hmm. Oh wow, things are getting spicy in here.
Hmm.
So queen. So at the end of everything, uh, basically material even, but uh,
Both sides have pass pawns. It's just
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and it's a question of whose passport is more dangerous. Well, they both had passports for a second, so oh man, this is funny. So then queen e6, queen a6, sorry.
And I think white will get a new pass pawn.
Yes, and this is still not trivial.
No. I feel like black's a bit better because he has to be black's pieces are a bit more active, so he has to be a bit more defensive. But
Yeah, there is that. But the one question is, does he allow the exchange of his rook on b2?
probably.
Because they both have a passed pawn, but white's passed pawn is slightly more passed on the e5. And after this exchange here, it's an open question whether black can push that pawn through. Now, after this and this, oh, the rook needs some minding. Yikes. Hmm. Okay. So this seems like it's going to be a tough one. Uh, is white able to make any progress at all?
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a plan for white or an ideal position. I can't come up with one.
No. Well, white seems to be making a little bit of progress, but even if you get the pawns up another move, how exactly are you creating a passed pawn?
Yeah.
Whoa! The kamikaze rook is in the building. Please take me. What's wrong with you? Oh, okay. Jordan is being wise there because now his king, Eddie's king, has the back rank to go to. But does that mean that Eddie succeeds in drawing here then? Because there's no way to defend the H pawn. Whoa, we could be having a bit of a turnaround here. Well, maybe not. There's no way the king, unless is Rook F5 working?
Yeah.
Huh. This is a bit of a turnaround, don't you think?
Big turnaround. Yeah, I just think Jordan must have missed as you as you put it well, the kamikaze rook. Uh, Otherwise he wouldn't have allowed that to happen.
Yes. And now the roles are reversed, where because Jordan was avoiding the draw and Eddie kept finding ideas. I mean, I don't think the chances of winning are that great if both sides play well, but it requires both sides to play well. And but even with best play, it seems to me like the king, the white pieces can hold back one of those, unless a zigzag position can be created where maybe having a reserve pawn makes a difference in the assessment. Hmm. What's your prognostication? Draw?
Yeah, I mean, from my limited knowledge of endgames, I would think that obviously that if there was just one pawn, would be an easy draw. You have the
Mm-hmm.
king in front of the pawn. With two pawns, I mean, well, double pawns to be more specific. Um, I don't think it changes too much. Like you can always sack the pawn, but you can't really deflect the king too much out of position. So I would assume it's a draw. But
Yeah, it seems as if uh, so I recently learned that you can access endgame table bases from within
mm,
Lichess. And according to the table bases, this is a drawn position as long as Black's genius manages to miss moves such as Rook B8, um, Rook G4, and Rook A4. Everything else is drawn.
yeah,
And it seems as if so yes, this should be draw. So it's a theoretical draw, but I don't even know if theoretical is the correct term to use. It's pretty much drawn, but white still needs to find the right moves, and that's the hard part with the clock ticking.
yeah. I think maybe we can look at this. I mean, the game's still live, so we can look at it maybe whenever. But I think Eddie's best chance, if he had a chance at all, was earlier when Jordan's king was on e8. That's when I really thought, okay, maybe Eddie has chances here because the king's so far away. But Jordan's king came steamrolling back to in front of the pawns. Then it's
So let's
but
go
like
back.
you said, it's a draw. But yeah, specifically on move 80, once Eddie takes the pawn on g5.
So
Um,
here he needs to, no, yes, here is the problem. I think rook, well, yeah, I think rook h, um, I think rook h5 is just, I'm not sure. Well, maybe rook h5 is not bad actually, but basically you don't want to allow the king to get in front of your pawns.
mhm,
And after this is where things go wrong, and after this is drawn. So I think just schematically, it would seem maybe easier to play king h6
mhm,
and say rook here happens, for example. Then maybe we play rook f5 to block the king away, the white king away from the action. And once it's now the rook and pawns and king against the rook, and this guy becomes a bystander, it's winning.
mhm.
Does that seem to make sense?
Yeah, I think is rook f5 immediately winning instead of rook h5? I didn't see it as one of the moves,
Yeah.
so maybe it's not.
No, I think
'Cause-
rook h5. My preference, if I was in this position in a live game, I think I'd be playing rook f5 right now.
Yes, that was what appealed to me
Um,
too, because rook h5 is. I think maybe he's worried
yeah,
about
it's
rook
just simple.
h1, but if rook h1, you just play rook h5, so rook h5 kind of loses its tempo,
Yeah,
and they can
exactly.
never trade, obviously. So I think if rook f5, maybe Eddie could have won this game.
Hmm. Yeah, once you let the enemy king, or once you let the enemy king get in front of his pawn, at this moment, it's drawn.
Yeah,
Um, or maybe I should be more accurate and say it's drawable. But yeah, I can't see Jordan messing this one up, especially since he still has an hour and 23 minutes left on his clock.
yeah, and
Oh,
even more
boy.
important than that, Eddie has 15 seconds.
Yes. So yeah, this would most likely end up as a Remy.
I think in a way, this is one of those games where I guess I don't know how both players would feel, but I I don't know if both players want to be particularly upset with this game because while Jordan was pressing, he obviously could have easily lost this game. Eddie was completely winning there with multiple moves, but fortunately for
Yes.
Jordan, he missed it. So I don't think Jordan will be too upset that he ended up probably drawing this game. We both agree that this should like 95% chance be a draw, but
Yes.
Eddie can't be probably too disappointed himself, considering that he was on the back foot a little bit all game. So, and he
Hmm.
obviously has uh, way less time. I don't even want to
Yes.
percentages, but so he probably can't be too disappointed as well.
So I wonder if Rook H5 is working. Sorry, King H5 is working now. I mean, in terms of finding ways to make White's life a bit difficult. It's still drawn, I would think, but at least it optically appears like Black is making progress if he can um, move the second G pawn.
I think it would be a good move if they play anything other than Rook H8.
Yes. Well, if they play Rook H8, it's still okay because Rook H8, now you're
True.
closer to the pawn and you can kick
Yeah.
the king back a bit. Again, I don't know that. Because we're coming on a weird kind of Philidor position. Um, but maybe because maybe Jordan needs to know when to bring his rook back because this is like a typical Philidor rook and pawn ending. I don't think, especially with the double G pawns. I don't know if that extra pawn will benefit White or Black here.
Yeah, I do think the live position, Jordan did play it more precise. Rook, I'm going back on what I said. I think Rook A5 is more precise
Okay,
instead of Rook H8. Rook A5 forces the pawn forward, and now the king is looking really awkward. Black's king, that is.
so here though, Eddie, yeah, play there, and then maybe create space for the king by going. Oh no, not that way. Going G3.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
G3. Ah, but maybe now there's king here.
Yes. That looks most.
And then if you check, now the king doesn't get any shelter. No, Black king can't find shelter easily.
Now you check forever. Yeah.
Yep. So, okay, let's see what happened. Okay, so this is the live position in the game. Hmm. So yeah, it's not clear how. Oh, I think it's clear that that uh, Jordan should be able to hold a draw. It's not clear how White can. Sorry, Black can make more progress, especially since now the pawns are that much more vulnerable. Hmm. In fact, maybe there's no because if you have to play rook, if you have to play rook here, well, he decides to give up the pawn straight away. Hmm. Huh.
Yeah, I like that move from Jordan. I mean, why risk it? I mean, if you take the pawn on G5, it's getting a little scary because the Black's king gets to G3. Their king's in front of the pawn. They're threatening mate potentially at times.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you
Yeah.
know that this fortress, maybe you can't call it a fortress, but you know this pattern works for you, then why not just keep
Yes.
checking the king forever?
Yep. No, that's excellent. It's an excellent mechanism. So yeah, so we so the trick now is, can Jordan play the next couple of moves quickly enough so that he ends with more time than he started
Hmm.
on move 112. It cracks me up each time. Move 112, and yes, he
He
got
made it
to
back.
1 hour. Yeah, I made it back to 1 hour and 30 minutes. So,
I don't
oh,
remember the
Eddie's
last
making
time.
progress too.
I don't
Huh?
remember the last time we've had a game this long in Thursday Nighter, from my recollection. I mean, it's gonna go on another few moves, get into the 120s.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, right? Because I mean, based on the normal length of games, this game hasn't lasted long in terms of minutes and seconds. It's okay. It's less. It's actually it's the last game to finish. It seems like these the games this week finished rather quickly.
Yeah, the games this week were really quick.
Yeah. But then that said, yeah, we're at move 116, and somebody's got more time than he started with. It's actually listed as an hour, 31 minutes, and 51 seconds.
And I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon here Eddie just let Jordan repeat the position. I mean, it just goes
Yeah.
back and forth because I think Eddie will. I mean, he tried that one trick, but once Jordan didn't allow it, he might just recognize that, well, Jordan's not going to fall for my trick, so maybe I should. It was definitely good of Eddie to try that trick. Try bringing
Yes.
the king away, try luring the rook to take that pawn, and even if it's still drawn, you at least entertain.
Yes.
You have no risk. You have no risk, so you might as well try it. See it. Perhaps it is quite good for black. But now that he didn't fall for it, just I mean, he might just make the draw here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems reasonable and logical. And
And there we go.
okay. Well, I had thought maybe they were shooting for 120, which might be the longest game I've seen, move wise, here. Um, all right. Any game in particular stand out to you?
Um, I liked one of the games. I was thinking of like would make a nice game of the week. Which game
Game of
was
the
that?
week.
Yeah, I know we haven't done that. That was something the castle did a while back.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have game of the week broadcasts. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I mean, the Noah Stewart game was just a nice checkmate at the end, sacking his queen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good motif. Um, but which game was it here?
Um, actually, I'm a bit partial to Jeremy's game. I thought
Hmm.
it was clean in its own way. Um,
Mm. I think it was Miles' game because Miles' game was like there were certain games where one side won because the other side collapsed and they wondered
yes,
this lack of vision in a particular moment. But Miles' game was okay. You could also call it a lack of vision by Torphy, but it was more strategic, positional concept of letting White take complete control of the board and have a kingside attack very quickly.
yes,
Like we said,
yes,
he needed to play d5. So I like
yes.
that game. Miles just converted cleanly.
Yeah. I think actually, yeah, I think all things considered, that was probably the game of the evening. Um, and yeah, well, let's any other club business before we sign off?
I think the only other thing is just to announce that this stream tonight is sponsored by Chess Goals. They're simple chess courses for non-grandmasters, and you can learn complete repertoires in under 100 lines. This is headed up by local national master Matt Jensen. He creates these courses, and you can use the coupon code CASTLE to save 30% on any purchases at chessgoals.com. So please check that out and take advantage of that nice coupon there. And we thank Matt Jensen for creating those courses and sponsoring. And
Cool.
I think that's it. Any last words? Okay.
No, none at the moment. I think this is going to be an interesting month. I suppose uh, we'll see if there's going to be a 3-horse race between Connor, Nathan, and Miles this
Yeah.
month.
And I think it's good this month. We're seeing some new players. Jordan, I haven't seen Jordan play Thursday nighters in a while. So Jordan's, even though he drew his first game, he wasn't able to get the win. I think he could also be in the mix. So
Yeah.
and then Ryan Sharoma, he unfortunately lost tonight, but he's also someone who hasn't played in a couple months. So good to see him back. So it's just good to see some new players. Well, not new players, but players who haven't played Thursday nighters in a little bit coming
Yes.
back for the summer. But I guess it's June and players can spend a little more time on chess, which is great.
Yes. Quite so.
Well, yeah, I think that'll do it, folks. Thanks for watching the stream, and we'll be back next week.